We're going to the casters.
Thank you so much, guys. I don't know how, but we've managed to get 3 Zerg players to find a way to balance wine about Zerg. That's amazing.
I know,
it's a new
right?
record. What's up, Penguin?
Well, I mean, this is really what we specialize in as a race. We're big wine connoisseurs.
Oh, I've noticed.
You could say, yeah.
Yeah. But, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get ready to hop into a very, very awesome TVZ. Players are talking about this. We had our analyst couch, or whatever you want to call it, talking about this. And what I'm really looking forward to is that Semper is this player that everyone always touts as, oh, he's very standard and everything. And I 100% agree. But the past 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month or so. Actually, it goes back to, like, I think Montreal, WCS Montreal, where Semper started mixing in all-ins. He started mixing in one-base attacks and cheeses. And
Most notably, he's also started mixing in mech.
Yeah.
Which is very, very counterpoint to his usual style. And I don't feel like he's as comfortable with mech. It's a notable skill level difference, but he's good enough at it to make it work. And then just the knowledge that he could throw that out there then makes his bio play indirectly stronger because the opponent can't just go in blind countering what he's going to do. So just having that overall just more variation in his play nowadays is just making him that much more of a scary competitor to go up against in especially a best of format rather than just best of ones in Clan Wars or whatever.
Diversity is scary, but here we go. Spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, the player representing Storm Gaming. Give it up for...
Storm JonSnow.
Oh, half of our audience remembered.
I like that little audience interaction that we've got going on now. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
But okay, we're going to be up here in the top left-hand corner of the map. The blue Terran player from Root Gaming. Give it up for... Woo! There we go.
Excuse me, I think that is some crowd bias right there.
Just have to make sure that we introduce the crowd favorite first.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to be starting things off here on Ascension to Ire, which is one of my favorite maps to sort of start series off on, because I feel like this one, more so than most, has sort of come up as the new super standard map. Obviously, we still have Abyssal Reef sitting in the map pool for the 912th season in a row, but Ascension to Ire really sort of wasn't one that I was expecting to show as good games as it has ended up doing. So I'm really glad that we're getting to start things off on this. Hopefully we get to see a nice, powerful macro game from both sides. They're both great in the late game. And we'll see just what kind of style Semper's going to go for here.
Yeah, like you were saying, I think he's really, really solid, especially with that kind of bio play. But the thing about Semper is that he is a macro harasser. And the way I always like to put that is he likes to go to the late game when he has enough resources to kind of utilize his units and get a lot of multi-pronged aggression. In the early game, he can do some harassment. He can go for drops like any standard Terran player would, but that's not really what he finds strength in. He really finds strength when he can pull his opponent apart with positional play specifically. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Semper try to get to that stage, whereas JonSnow, I feel like, is really capable of doing a lot of aggression. I feel like you would probably know a lot about JonSnow's playstyle as someone on Storm that coaches him a lot.
I feel like the biggest thing... So first of all, just to give a little bit of context to what I'm about to say, JonSnow has won the last 3 matches between these two and has won 4 of the 5 matches this year. And that sort of contextualizes that you were saying that Semper is an aggressive macro player. But what that means a lot of the time is that he doesn't have as many units on the map as somebody who is going for like an all-in or whatever, so he's still got a lot of workers and a lot of eco going on at home. But since he has so much out on the map, he actually doesn't have the ability to defend run-bys quite as well as the more passive defensive Terrans would, and that's really where JonSnow sort of excels. He's always able to sort of find those openings, find those gaps, find damage where other people couldn't, and that's something that Semper is definitely going to need to be careful of in this series if he's going to try to win. And
absolutely, the best defense is sometimes just a really solid offense that catches your opponent off guard. But we already see the Reaper trying to find little bits and pieces of damage. JonSnow seems to have a very, very strong defense over here. He even gets down that third without too many problems. The Reaper isn't able to deny that drone. So not until the Hellions come out is there really going to be a whole lot more aggression. I'd be surprised if this Reaper manages to sneak its way past all the Queens with Zergling speed finishing up as well.
We've also got this extremely fast third CC coming out for Semper and going straight on into the stim as well. So he's not going to be playing mech or anything like that, but he's not going to be powering up to any additional Raxes for quite a while because, of course, he has invested all of that money into that third CC. And that means we're going to be seeing him be a little bit more passive right now. There's no Banshee follow-up to this. There's no drops coming in straight away. He is a guy who likes to do Hellion drops, so it's just going to be a little bit of poking and prodding, trying to deny the creep spread here with the Hellions, trying to just make sure that JonSnow doesn't get a little bit too over-eager with that drone key. And in the meantime, we're going to have Semper just absolutely powering up his economy and seeing probably him take quite a large economic advantage going to around the 6, 7, 8 minute mark.
And I mean, this again complements all the playstyle strengths that he has that we were talking about earlier. So I really want to see how JonSnow is going to react. Is he going to try and put on that aggression we were talking about, cut drones at maybe a little bit earlier than a lot of other Zerg players would, and go for some of those run-bys, try and find that damage? Because if you're up against a 3CC style, you got to do something. You can't just let the Terran player be and get into that groove, especially a player like Semper.
At the same time, though, the problem with Terran and the way that it works as a race from the Zerg perspective is that you have, when they start doing something greedy, you have a window in which to punish them before that greed pays off and becomes more units. And at this point, that window has closed for JonSnow. This build is such that it would basically die against any kind of blind all-in from JonSnow, but it starts to get that power up for the just the production so fast that it's very difficult for the Zerg to do anything reactively to punish it. So at this point, the best thing JonSnow can do is maybe try to harass that third base when it comes down, but just hold down the D key. He needs as many drones as he can possibly have. And what he is actually going to try to go for, though, is a Roach Ling all-in. And this is something that JonSnow has been favoring quite a lot on this map. And even in this tournament already, we'll see if it pays off. But like I was saying, Semper's had those additional Raxes for quite a while. Stim already done. And 1-1 won't be done, so at least that's something that JonSnow's not going to have to contest with. But look at how many Marines we already have on the map.
There are quite a few Marines over here, but this might actually catch Semper at the exact moment he's about to move out to try and get into position to help defend that third that he's taking on the low ground. And so far, yeah, Semper's been very active with these Hellions. He's been poking at the front, but he hasn't seen any of the massive swell of Roaches that are coming out right now. So with these Hellions kind of running around the outskirts of the map rather than through the center, the Roaches have gone unscouted until now, and now the Roaches have managed to get a kill on one of the Hellions. Semper may be in a little bit of trouble over here. He's going to have to lift up that third, but will the Marines get back in time? Looks like, oh, he's going to stim back and make sure they do.
At least he did see those Roaches coming quickly enough that he is able to relocate back to his natural. The +1 armor is actually getting kind of close to finishing. It's not going to be done for a little while yet, but maybe we'll see one of these upgrades have some effect on this engagement. Scan comes down, in come the Ravagers. He's going to try to bile down these engineering bays. They are quite tanky.
Whoa. Big sim forward as we end up seeing the Marines trying to pick off any of these Ravagers that he can. Those Ravagers are very expensive units that are really able to put pressure on that wall, and so he doesn't want to be losing any of those.
We do see a couple of badly rallied Marines going out and walking to their deaths, but the +1 armor has completed, and the +1 attack is getting closer and closer. In the meantime, Semper has bled a few units here and there, but he's got a tank on the high ground here. JonSnow is extremely all in with this. There is no lair. There are no upgrades. He must make this work. Is he going to be able to deny the +1? No! 1-1 is complete now for Semper, and with that double upgrade lead, his units will be a lot stronger. The question is simply, does he have enough of them?
JonSnow going to try and do a little bit of damage to that third, make sure it's not still mining during the midst of all this. The supply depots are starting to fall right now, and with the wall gun that allows these Roaches and the Ravagers to get on top of this army, he needs good corrosive biles to connect to try and take this. He does manage to kill off 7 workers, but even with those 7 worker deaths, we still see that Semper's leading up not only in the worker count, but also he's got those mules, those beautiful Terran mules that they love so much.
That being said, though, we are now getting close to the 8-minute mark, which means that with mules especially, the main base is going to start mining out, but we have the stim coming on forward. The Marines are going to try to close the distance. They're killing off a lot of these Ravagers. They just don't have a lot of HP, and JonSnow now behind in supply for the first time in this all-in. Still no lair, still no Evos, and this is, I mean, he'll be able to break the tank, but does he have the units? Now I just don't know if he does. There's, again, no follow-up. Finally, he starts double Evos here, but so late. And this Liberator is going to deny any potential mining here on this third base. Not that they're the drones for it at all right now anyway.
Yeah, they're kind of saving grace right now. And these Ravagers, at least a few of them are still alive, making it harder for these Marines to push out Semper, kind of struggling to get the pickoffs on the remaining ones for now. And that third base still not able to mine. Semper, I guess, being able to keep your opponent at home is nice for JonSnow, but like you said, does he actually have the ability to buy enough time to get out that transition? He's still just pumping out roaches. He still hasn't really droned up, despite cleaning up the Liberator, despite getting and buying himself some space. He's just making more units.
Yeah, he's realized at this point it's too far gone of a game as far as transitioning out goes. He has to go for one final death push that is unlikely to work. He knows that this is unlikely to work, but if he can catch Semper right here, for example, if the tanks are unsieged, if he gets a full surround, if he lands the biles, there is still a little bit of hope for JonSnow to potentially take this. But again, no lair. He did add those 2 Evos, but he hasn't started any kind of upgrades right now. There is still no transition. Almost 10 minutes into the game now. Another fight coming down here.
Whoa!
As Good Bile comes down in the middle of all those Marines, and that does pick off a fair few of them. But, I mean, the 1-1 upgrades are going to help a lot here for Semper.
Yeah, Semper is dancing with death, though, as he tries to continue to engage against us. A couple of corrosive biles do land on the Marines, as well as even some of the Zerglings over there. But now the Liberator also going to try and come in to help out. These medevacs, honestly, I didn't really notice this until now, but they're starting to get a little bit low. They're eating a couple of those corrosive biles here and there.
No energy either.
Yeah, he's been stimming since the beginning of this attack, Penguin. There are a couple of things that still could go well for JonSnow.
Well, the thing as well is that we saw Semper lose a lot of units there as he moved out. Oh, giant tank shelling coming on down, but he will be able to pick off one of them potentially. No!
Oh, he
gets more shots off. Finally picking up the tanks here. Does JonSnow have enough to push through here?
Oh.
Why is Semper in the middle of nowhere?
Oh my god, the wall was never rebuilt either, so suddenly all these units have to retreat up to the high ground, but the depot is down! The Lings make their way in! The depot is raised, keeping the Ravagers out, but those supply depots are not going to be long for this world with the Ravagers.
More Biles coming on down as well. The Marines taking more and more shelling from those Ravagers. The army supply is almost doubling for JonSnow.
Oh god, you can't move down that ramp with the Ravagers there. The supply depots are finally starting to burn down as well, and JonSnow may have found the big break that he needs.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this comes down to Semper just thinking that JonSnow is transitioning, but JonSnow has never ceased unit production here, finally starting an upgrade out of one of those 2 Evos, but there is just not that much left here. The 1-1 upgrades are allowing Semper to clean some of these units up, but more reinforcements coming across. We can see the line of red moving across the minimap, and it's just not going to be enough for Semper. JonSnow in the main base. GG is called. 1-0 for the Psystorm Gaming Zerg.
JonSnow, I mean, I really feel like in that game, you kind of mentioned it first, just being able to continuously pump out units, that is probably the most no-regret thing I've ever heard anyone say, where you just say, well, the first all-in didn't work, the second wave of all-ins don't work. What if I pull back and go in a third time?
Yeah, and the funny thing is you even saw JonSnow go, God damn it, it's not working. I got to put down some Evos. And then the little no-regret on his shoulder was like, hey, just make more units.
Was anyone watching No Regret making sure he wasn't like talking to JonSnow during that?
Was he just like actually behind him?
He was
holding up a whiteboard from the balcony, just like, make more units.
More Lings, more Ravagers. Actually, no, he just trashed on Ravagers. So really, if anything, it was probably
more
Scarlet.
More no, but that's actually an interesting thing that you brought up, where very few people would look at that sort of situation and think to themselves, all right, I'll try again. Maybe that'll work. And because it's such a stupid idea on paper, that's why it sometimes works. Yeah. Because Semper goes into that situation thinking, obviously JonSnow is droning now. Like there's no way JonSnow is not making workers right now. Why would he possibly not be doing that?
Would have been doing if he realized that there was no more drones coming out. If it was just more units, he would have played way more defensive. He wouldn't have tried to repeatedly try and establish that third in such a vulnerable location. He would have probably been more, I guess, diligent about reestablishing that wall and at the natural to buy time, keeping maybe even bunkers up to buy extra time if he needed to, because he knew in that situation, or he would have known, yeah, I don't have to do all these things to focus on economy, but he did not realize that JonSnow was doing all that. It was just JonSnow being able to play out that exact role of, okay, I'm backing off, I'm done, you can relax now, go ahead, take your expansion, I give it to you, I yield it, and then coming back in and saying, actually, fooled you.
Ironically, the Liberator that we saw Semper send out to the third base, I feel like that actually might have done more harm than good, specifically because he has it queued up. The way that you do it, you don't watch the Liberator as it's going in. You queue it up, and then you look there when it gets there. You see what's going on. So he queues it up, and then he looks there, sees no drones at the
wow, I did a lot of damage!
Well, not even that. It's just like, oh, okay, well, he pulled his drones away because there's a Liberator here. Instead of just scanning and going, there's no drones at that base.
Yeah.
So really just a misread by Semper, and it wasn't that he made bad decisions, it's that he just didn't know exactly what was going wrong, that was going on as far as on JonSnow's side of the map. So thankfully for Semper, it's not best of 1, it's not even a best of 3, it's a best of 5, so he's got plenty more chances to bring this back. And I definitely feel like he is capable of giving us at least a very good series. Even though he's had a lot of trouble against JonSnow this summer, he did beat him back in August, so it's possible. And we are into the second map here. Take it away with our intros, Ravi and Crowd.
And Crowd, most importantly, spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map. We have the red Zerg player from Storm Gaming. Put your hands together for...
Storm JonSnow.
I love you, Jared.
And down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Terran player from Root Gaming. Give it up for...
Root Gaming, Semper.
Semper, the Canadian hometown hero here. I mean, he's not from Toronto, but home country hero.
Montreal's pretty close, man.
It's not too far.
Close enough. And we still got some of that JonSnow love.
I'm the only one who clapped to that.
I'm clapping in my heart, though. So
I appreciate that guy in the crowd. But anyway, we got Interloper coming up. This one, I would say probably Semper's map pick, which then would mean that Ascension to Ire was JonSnow's map pick. So losing on the first pick of your opponent on the best of 5, not the biggest deal in the world. Semper won't be feeling too terrible about that, especially with Interloper coming out. There's a lot of stuff that you can do on Interloper that's very cool and kind of plays into Semper's style. Semper is the kind of guy that, even though he does prefer bio, he likes to mix in tanks. We saw that in the last game, and this is a map where tanks can really just be wonderful, wonderful units for the Terran. And this is also one where I wouldn't be too shocked to see him go for mech if he's planning on doing that at some point in the series. This would be a good map to do it on.
Yeah, you knock down those rocks, you're suddenly defending only one location over by that third base. Things just start to work out a little bit better. But I'm also really curious, how is JonSnow going to play this out? Because JonSnow is definitely the player that I think a lot of people would consider a little bit more versatile in terms of the build orders and stuff that he'll go for. Semper's been mixing it up a little bit more, but JonSnow has a bit more experience throwing out lots of different styles.
Yeah, well, Semper definitely, as we talked about earlier, has been mixing it up a little bit more. More cookie cutter in the last game. Looks pretty cookie cutter this game as well. We'll see if he adds on as early a third CC once again. But in the meantime, he is going up towards that factory. The Reaper trying to get a little bit of damage here. It doesn't quite force a spore there. Will get away with 2 HP, so he'll be fine. Doesn't even get the second Ling this time around, so a little bit less successful. But I'm really curious about what Semper's going for now, because Semper has a lot of builds where he plays very aggressive with Hellions, and he does some Hellbat play. But more importantly, the one that I really don't like, okay, this is a mind drop, but I was going to say he does one build where he drops 3 Hellions in your main and then runs 3 Hellions into your natural simultaneously. Oh, yeah. That's not fun. No. It really isn't very fun.
At least not on the Zerg side. It's very fun as a viewer where I say, oh man, look at that. Penguin's getting destroyed.
Wow, thanks, fam.
All good. I got your back every time. I always have your back. Well, you mentioned that this looks like it's going to be a mind drop, and mind drops, I feel like as a Protoss player, I have a bit of a bias of look at mind drops because I say, oh, well, if you're always prepared, you can pick off those mind drops. So that's not always really the case for Zerg players. Oftentimes, you really do have to be very on point about pulling those drones away, being ready to, I guess, react to them, and then eventually being ready with the detection to try and clean them up.
The interesting thing about mind drops is that they're so uncommon because they're not as good versus Zerg as they are against Protoss, because we have very easy detection in the form of spore crawlers.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to even bait the mine and not lose anything by baiting the shot and then making a spore crawler. But we do have actually the follow-up with a medevac. Maybe he is just going to go for... okay, no, it is going to be the mind drop with some Hellions at the front. But, yeah, I mean, the reason why it can be very powerful is that it's just so uncommon that you don't expect it. It's not really on your radar as a probable thing you'll have to deal with. And this is going to be a multi-phased aggression here from Semper. We've got the mind drop coming out first. We've got that armory starting up. So there's going to be a Hellbat push as a follow-up, while a Liberator goes in at the back as well. So this is going to be very, very much down to how well JonSnow's multitasking deals with this. And the mind drop here, well, yeah, this is Interesting placement of the mine, but you're never really going to kill a ton of drones with it. So what you want to do is you want to have it as the zoning tool, making sure that the Lings can't get a full wraparound or anything like that.
Well, Hellions running on over to the third, trying to keep any Lings from making their way over to that third base. And they're going to be able to at least zone out the Queens a little bit. I really want to actually note that JonSnow's doing a great job so far as well with the creep spread. But okay, here we go. As one Queen dies over by the third, the Marines drop into the main base, not really encountering a whole lot of defenses, but a handful of the Roaches, just a small number able to try and push back that drop as he sees, oh, wait a second, you're actually making some good defenses for dealing with Hellions with these Roaches.
Yeah, looks like JonSnow. Oh, nice catch there. Picks off the 5 Marines and the medevac there. But yeah, the Roaches are just really going to deal very, very well with the entire follow-up here. And losing that medevac is very, very painful, not just because of the resources that entails, but also because of just how much potential that takes away from any kind of further push, just because that's one less area he can be attacking at once. So, and actually, JonSnow has decided he's done. He wants to go for another Roachling all-in, and I think I saw Drop Overlords on the production tab.
Oh,
maybe
boy.
he's going to bring Queens?
Well, the rocks are slowly being burnt down, which is not a phrase I get to say very often, but like it sounds, it does take quite a bit of time. So JonSnow's going to be able to make it over here. Oh, one Siege Tank shot does push JonSnow back a little bit, already softening up some of those Roaches. The Liberator on the other side of the map trying to get some damage done, but JonSnow really needs to make this work because he's committing to this. Almost gets a Siege Tank, but just barely going to be able to scooch its way out of there.
Well, there's the couple of Queens coming on in. Gets a transfusion off on that Overseer. The Overseer is very important. I find it interesting that he found the time to go up to lair while making this many units as well. So having that Overseer is going to be really nice. It's just going to, yeah, nice transfuses coming in for sure. And it's going to be a Ling drop into the main potentially.
Ooh, could drop it on top of the Siege Tank as well.
I don't think that would not really work that well with Lings, but he could potentially do that with the Queens. But no, it looks like now he's going to lose that Dropper Lord. There's another one over here. He's going to lift up the Queens. This is a very slow, awkward push that behind the, which JonSnow is making more drones. He is making an Evo chamber. So this is much more of a contain than in the last game.
Yeah, as you said, it contained with not only the Evolution Chamber, but 57 workers, much, much healthier, even actually a higher count right now than Semper, who is not going to be able to establish his third for a while with this kind of aggression happening right now. And you can see the remnants, I guess the memory of that last game is very, very strong. As JonSnow just backs up and he says, well, yeah, you committed a lot to that defense over there. You were building bunkers, you were having SCVs off to repair, and you just haven't really been able to put on any kind of your patented Semper aggression on me this whole time.
Interesting thing to note as well, I talked about how Semper just didn't notice in the last game that the third hatch was just devoid of any kind of workers. He's already dropped 2 scans on the third and the natural, 1 each this game. So that is actually about 500 minerals that he hasn't been able to bring in via those mules. So considering that he's not in a great spot economically anyway, that is going to be a bit of a factor. It looks like he does have a pretty solid upgrade lead with the double upgrades coming on in. But JonSnow, despite that contain, despite having to deal with that aggression, is up to Hive on the way at 8 minutes. This is ridiculous. He's just going for a hardcore Ultra Rush. He's basically just looked at the game and said, all right, Semper is in full defense mode. He doesn't have what it takes to push out. So I feel like I can get up to Ultras, and if I have Ultras, it's going to be all she wrote. That's his game plan here.
We'll see if he can make it over there. Semper, he does finally have that kind of breathing room that he normally is able to utilize and start putting on that aggression, start utilizing those drops. I do want to note that I like that JonSnow is trying to do a good job of spreading some creep along the south and the north side. It really helps out versus a player like Semper, because being able to have advanced knowledge that the medevacs are coming in, or a Liberator, or what have you, the Hellions are doing a run by, is so important in trying to make sure you minimize worker losses, especially if you're trying to afford very expensive units like Ultras.
Very, very true there, Ravi. Finally, we're also seeing the double upgrades coming on in. As you were saying, this is going to be the kind of a unit composition. That's also very nice, by the way. He's going to be able to cut into the tank production. But what we're going to end up seeing here is that JonSnow is going to be very, very weak for a period of time because he has to save up that much money and invest that much in upgrades and ultras. As you see in the production tab right now, he's got +2 melee, +1 carapace, adrenal glands, baneling speed, burrow, all of this coming in at once. He's spending about 1,000 gas or more Oh, nice Hellion drop coming in, though.
Yeah, again, a huge roasting on a ton of these drones. There's also the triple medevac drop that was heading its way over to another base while these Hellions trying to get some damage on. The Hellions finally get pushed back, but now the fourth is going to be a little bit bare. But there's the thrusters over there.
Oh!
They do have enough energy for fungal growth, and they throw out one, but it looks like most of the units have unloaded. JonSnow trying to get in position and trying to kill this off. The corrosive biles actually killing off some of his own larva rather than any of the medevacs, and Semper is getting the damage done.
Yeah, this is really what I was talking about. There's that period of time when you're rushing up to ultras like this where you just do not have that many units and you don't have any way to control the air at all. So JonSnow is trying his best right now to get up to ultras, but he has enough money for one Ultralisk, Ravi.
Well, that one Ultralisk better be pretty damn effective right now because it's coming out in that main base.
Oh, no!
Oh, no! Chitinous plating in the Ultra.
Oh, Transfuse
is coming out. He's trying to save it.
Oh, he gets it!
Not enough.
Oh.
Semper, with a successful run-by attempt, is now going to be moving in with the rest of these units. And what hope does JonSnow have? He's going to try and take the best engagement possible. Does get some lings on top of those siege tanks. Siege tanks actually firing on top of each other, doing some friendly fire. Ooh, a second siege tank going down. So not the worst start in the world over here for JonSnow, but he's really got to make up for the fact that he lost that Ultra Cavern and delayed chitinous plating.
Yeah, the delayed chitinous plating is the real kicker here, because you think about what his army composition is. His whole 10, 11, 12-minute plan and what he needs right now based on the entire game and the way he's played is, I'm going to have 4 units that you can't possibly kill because your upgrades aren't going to be at 3-3 yet. But there's no chitinous, so now he has 4 units that can be very easily killed and won't do too much until he actually does manage to research that chitinous. And the Ultra Cavern is only just now finished again. And look at the production tab. You have so much going on for Semper. Look at this move command as well, just losing more and more units. And Semper just continuously taking these a couple of really big swings, but a lot of really small ones that are definitely adding up over time, giving him a pretty sizable advantage in this game.
All right, well, a couple of Lings actually burrowing over by that third. Maybe Semper doesn't actually know about this right now, or maybe he's saving up energy for a scanner. Maybe it's focusing on killing off that fourth base. JonSnow is very late to try and help defend, but does manage to save it for now. Can always come back in a little bit later on. Target fire it down while these drops happen. This is what I'm talking about, Penguin. Semper was just positional play, pulling JonSnow every which way, making it so hard to deal with this aggression.
You know what I'm really curious about right now? I would love it if our wonderful observer, Endersword, could press Control-R and show us how many workers have died.
Oh, God. Quite a few.
48, 49, and he gets the 50. He's already halfway to 100. And that is, well, kind of the tail of this game, I'd say, Ravi. You look at the supply, he's up by 30. You look at the army supply, he's up there. He's up in workers. He's up in upgrades. In what way is Semper not winning this game right now? He is ahead in every feasible way. And that after the great start to the game where JonSnow had that great defense and then put on that contain that allowed him to just continuously get more and more ahead. So even though Semper came into this mid-game at a deficit, he's turned it around with his patented multi-pronged harass, as you coined it, aggressive macro, and he's just powered his way to this really phenomenal position.
And now even JonSnow, when he has these ultras, oh god, one ultra kind of derping around that Roach Warren. No, that's not another Ultralisk. You can't do that. But the Ultralisk coming in from behind. Nice fungal growth, catching these siege tanks off guard. Gonna be able to actually do a huge cleanup on a lot of very expensive units over here for Semper. Semper still has a good amount of army supply, and a lot of it is sitting back at home. But with chitinous plating finished up, with 2-2 finished up, there is still one potential last opportunity for JonSnow to push across the map and make something happen. But you can see Semper may even just be gearing up to do another drop while this is gonna happen.
The thing as well, when you think about Ultras, that Ultras obviously very strong units, but the whole idea...
Whoa.
That was very close.
Calculated.
Woo! But the whole idea of Ultras, rushing up to Ultras to get that easy late game win is that you're able, as the Zerg, to get up to the Ultras if you rush them faster than the Terran can get out the Marauder count necessary to deal with it. But since Semper has kept JonSnow on his side of the map for so long, he's been pumping out 4 Marauders at a time this whole game. He's sitting at a very large Marauder count. And while the Ultras are still going to be very scary, Semper is in a position to hold this with proper army control.
Yeah, tanks siege up a little bit late, but they are in time to push back this army. You can see that JonSnow actually kind of clumping up all of his units behind those Ultras and the Banelings that were morphing in. Gonna get canceled. JonSnow forced back and sitting down almost 25, 30 army supply right now. He's gonna find one of the newer established bases and might burrow a couple of Banelings over here just to try and be annoying, catch some of those SCVs as they're getting transferred over. But for now, JonSnow is gonna have to back up and regroup, rethink his plans.
He also only has 2 Infestors right now, and he's adding on a couple more, which is good, but you don't need many Fungals to land, but it's nice to have multiple opportunities in case you whiff one or the Terran dodges the first one, because right now he's only got 2 opportunities, and if he can't Fungal the bio, the Ultras just won't connect, and they'll be kited forever and always, and as we go through right now, let's see if he can land one of those Fungals.
Oh, that's a pretty decent Fungal, at least some of the siege tanks and everything. Another one on the Medivacs, but as the Ultras start to get picked off, you start to see the damage coming in from those Liberators, some from those Marauders you were talking about, Penguin, and forcing JonSnow back, who's now sitting down 40 or so supply, and now has to find some way to defend his bases. I just don't think he has enough anymore.
Yeah, the drone's not going to be long for this world, nor will their hatchery. It looks like the drones will escape for now, but the hatch goes down once again, relegating JonSnow to 3 bases. He's going to deny this one if he focuses that down as well, but it looks like he wanted to try to kill off an Ultra. Fortunately there for JonSnow. Queen was there to transfuse it up, but now, this is now that phase of the game where Semper just has so many units. How is JonSnow supposed to be everywhere at once? Semper can just be more places.
This is just actually Semper's perfect place in the game. This is his favorite place in the game. He has the economy, he has the units, and he has the kind of momentum going in his favor. He is just a ball that keeps rolling, and JonSnow doesn't really have a good way to halt that aggression. He doesn't have a good way to stop the ball and allow himself to get across the map and do some counter-aggression anymore.
And I think in the context of the series, it has to be noted as well that this isn't a game that, this is really the definition of a game that Semper has earned this position in. He had a lot of adversity as far as builds, as far as the way the opening went. Great snipes on the Infestors there. Semper just playing everything right in this game. And JonSnow, how does he fight this? There's just not even much army, and then he's trying to fight into a choke point against fully upgraded units. Ah, man, the Infestors are there. You can see those energy bars, but there's not enough energy for Fungal. GG! Semper ties up the series 1-1.
Well done by Semper. We finally have our first series that's not going to be a 3-0 today, Penguin.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And JonSnow, pretty confident usually against Semper, but he always does say that Semper is a guy who he feels that he should beat, but it's not easy. Semper doesn't ever make it easy for anyone. Semper is a very, very solid player, and he's showcased that in this game a lot more than in the first one. He's warmed up now. He's found his groove.
Absolutely. I think, and you just said it perfectly, I think Semper is one of those players that's very hard to kill. He's the player that will cling to life to the bitter end and find small little ways to pull the game back, and that's scary. It's not even necessarily just the games he does that in, it's the knowledge that in the past he keeps doing that. You start thinking to yourself as you get ahead, okay, don't screw this up. Don't let him just catch 20 of my drones or 30 of my drones off guard and suddenly get this massive kind of victory.
Can we talk about for a moment how awesome that trophy is?
That trophy is phenomenal. I think it's actually my favorite trophy in esports right now.
The reason why it's the best is that it's actually a life-size shield. It's like a proper shield. It's sick.
Like I was saying, man, use it to defend yourself from the haters.
Yeah. The haters. The king in the north will have no haters, Robbie.
They'll be executed.
Well, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Well, the third map, I'm not sure what the third map is going to be, but going into this, presumably based on the order of the maps, I would imagine that this one is going to be JonSnow's second pick, so potentially Odyssey. I would imagine it's not going to be Catalina, it's not going to be Acolyte. Don't know what the vetoes were, but I would say probably Odyssey, maybe Abyssal Reef, and either of those decent macro maps. Now, I want to notice something, though. We've seen 2 games. Both of them were... I mean, the first one wasn't really macro. It was a longer game, but it wasn't really macro. But the second game was a macro game. We haven't seen JonSnow bust out the Lingbane Hydra yet. We haven't seen him press the OP button yet.
The OP button, we're going there. Interestingly enough,
I play Zerg. I'm allowed to say that.
I know. Well, you know, I'll say the other side of it. We also haven't seen Semper go for the mech play either yet.
I actually feel like that's more understandable, though, because Semper is the guy who I was saying earlier, he can play mech. But the ability to play mech for him, the benefit there is more so in just the fact that he can play it, not necessarily when he plays it. Because even if he doesn't use it this series, JonSnow has to play around that in his openings. He has to play around that there is the potential for the mech to be there. So I wouldn't be very surprised, even if this went all 5 games, to see Semper go without playing mech. I'd love to see it, though. I'd really like to see it. Even if it's a little bit not his comfort zone, it's always fun to have some nice variation in the games. Neither of them looking particularly happy.
Well, of course, even though, of course, Semper did win, he is in the loser's bracket. Both these players are on the verge of elimination if they cannot win this particular series. They really would like to make that deep run. They'd like to get over to at least the losers finals, if not the grand finals, to face off versus the winner of Scarlet versus Neve. But they got a lot of different things in their pathway, including each other right now. These two guys, two really strong players. And I think one thing I really like about both these players is in a lot of ways, I actually feel as though Semper is that player that a lot of people have hopes for, and sometimes just really exceeds expectations, and sometimes you're like, okay, yeah, you know, you're busy getting a law degree, I understand. JonSnow's like the opposite end. Mr. Consistency always seems to show up, but never shows up more than you expected.
Yeah, exactly. He's not so much the reacher, but he's the guy who, you know, he's gonna do fine. Like he'll have like if he goes to WCS, he'll get at least $1,000 in prize money.
Yeah.
Robbie,
But
can I do it?
go for it.
All right. In the bottom left spawn location of Acolyte, we've got our blue Terran player for Root Gaming tying up the series with some phenomenal macro play. It is
Root Gaming, Semper.
And his opponent, spawning in the top right as our red Zerg player for Storm Gaming. Can he put himself back in the lead? It is
Storm JonSnow.
Let's go, JonSnow! Let's go, JonSnow!
Sounds glorious.
I love it.
It's wonderful, wonderful. Music to my ears, Robbie.
Well, can the King of the North turn the series back around and to overcome, I guess, that last loss? Because if you remember, game number 1, it started off with JonSnow going for that Ling Roach all-in, and it kind of turned into a weird situation where he came back, but we really did think that Semper had a solid hold.
Yes. I actually just realized game 1, JonSnow was basically dead and then won.
Yeah,
and then
he
game
came
2,
back.
Semper was basically dead and then won. So whoever's ahead at like the 8-minute mark is gonna lose.
Okay, we'll keep
So
that
some
in mind.
top level analysis, Robbie.
We'll have to make sure that we lock in the bets before that point.
All right. Ooh, very fast third base coming up from JonSnow. The fastest you generally see is 220. So this is really, really fast out of JonSnow. I mean, a lot of this is because of Acolyte and the way that you do have that in-base expansion, but very, very interesting to see him going for that super early, and that means he's going to be playing gasless.
Okay. What are some of the things that kind of means when you play gasless? Because, of course, it means that you're not going to have a super early Zergling speed. It allows you to have some more minerals, but how does that really impact the kind of choices you have available to you as a Zerg player?
I mean, really, you don't play gasless in Legacy, so I'm just really interested to see what he's going to go for. In Heart of the Swarm, a gasless opening generally meant that they were going to go for a 1-1 Roach push or just a Roach Hydra macrocentric style. That's not really a thing in Legacy, and it doesn't lend itself to Roach Ravager as well, just because you need the gas for the Ravager transition. So I'm really interested. Maybe this could very well, knowing JonSnow's play style and the way he's been playing today, this could be like a really big +1 Roach push with Roach speed. It could be something like that, which wouldn't be too surprising. But again, this is a giant map, so I don't... could be Nidus.
Could we get a vision check on that, on anything from Semper to see if he actually saw that there was no gas? Because I don't think he actually moved into the main base at all. So
oh yeah,
he actually
doesn't know. So he doesn't realize that. And if Semper does play for a more passive style like he did in game number 1 with the more economic focus, if JonSnow just holds down the D key, he's going to have a massive eco lead. And we already see 10 drones were in production at once at the 330 mark. And yeah, there's the third CC already coming up. Both of them going ham on the greed.
Acolyte, of course, a great map to try and play economic focus just because you have an in-base natural expansion. You have a nice and easy to defend low ground third base that's not super open. Semper isn't going to have to worry about trying to get units out of position, kind of like we saw on the first map. But here we go. Hellions getting into a nice spot, getting a couple
No speed on those Lings.
Yeah.
He pins him into the corner anyway. Nice defense there by JonSnow. Did the Reaper go down? Looks like the Reaper may have also died. Yeah, no Reaper. And did he see the gas? Because the gas timing That'll be very interesting to see if he saw that or not. No, so he doesn't have any idea that this was a gasless opening. And the result of that, you can see it in the worker tab. We're at 4 minutes 20, and JonSnow's already at 42 with 7 more about to pop. He's going to be at 50 drones compared to the 34 of Semper, and that's 34 drones with Semper opening super fast 3cc. So just the ability for JonSnow to just make a giant drone count here is really what's going to define the earlier stages of this game. We've got the double Evos on the way, and this will be the telling moment about what tech he's going to go for. I feel like with no lair on the way, it's going to be just Ling upgrades, but we'll see.
Yeah, really strong upgrades. Always a nice way to try and face off versus a Terran player. But like you said, JonSnow even going to be able to get up that 4th base. I think by this point, Semper's probably realized after seeing a few of these slow lings, like, wait, okay, hold on. You just actually never got Zergling speed. Funny enough, Zergling speed is on the way eventually to pair up with those +1 melee attack upgrades. But one of the nice things, when you get those melee upgrades, not only is it useful for things like Banelings and especially the Baneling run-bys and harassment, but when you get out those ultras and when you get out adrenal glands on your Zerglings, when you get up to Hive Tech, you're just so well situated for those late game engagements.
For sure. And I mean, the other thing as well is that we always sort of talk about, not as much in Legacy, but even back in HOTS, we always used to say that the ZVT matchup was defined by when the Terran got 3-3, because the Zerg obviously has to jump through a lot more hoops to unlock that, so Terran tends to get to 3-3 a lot faster. But when you're looking at this right now, like, the upgrades, Semper is still ahead on them, but not by more than about 15-20 seconds, not by any real margin that's going to make a difference. And the way that JonSnow's been playing, he may just play defensive straight up to Hive and be able to have a very fast 3-3 himself, basically taking away from Semper that standard advantage that Terran would have going into the earlier stages of the late game.
But Semper still does have that kind of aggression that he likes to put on, and that's really how JonSnow fell behind in the last game. It wasn't just with JonSnow trying to get aggressive or anything. He actually backed off during that Ling Roach aggression, and then just said, I'm going to just outdrone you, but Semper was able to find bits and pieces of damage, roast a lot of those workers with these Hellions, with the Marine drops. We'll see if Semper's going to be able to make anything happen during this time to try and slow down JonSnow.
I love this. He's going to come around for the surround of the Lings. Is he going to get... There's no Lings coming from the top yet. Mistimes it a little bit, but he still cleans up the Hellions, loses a little bit more than he would have liked to, but JonSnow takes away the map control from Semper and all the map vision pretty much. So really, really nice little pick off, but will he be in position to deal with this double medevac drop?
Well, the Queen's already there. Sporecrawler also going to be able to whittle away at the health of that medevac, and a couple of Lings already swinging on in very, very quickly. Really nice reaction time from JonSnow. Holds without too many problems.
Yep, picks off about 8 of those Marines. I think he picked off 7. Really, really nice. Doesn't lose the Queen even, so doesn't lose anything at all of note. And we've got the Hive on the way. It's 7 minutes this time. He's going into Hydras. He's going to be able to get a few Hydras to sort of have some kind of anti-air capabilities and just some sort of mid-game presence in his army to help him survive till the Ultra transition is ready to go. But he's going to be going very, very quick Ultras once again.
All right, Marines getting forced to back off once again before they can really start to deny that crease rate, which again is a huge, huge thing that helps out versus a player like Semper. Crease rate is so important. Ooh, I like the positioning of those Marines.
Can we appreciate that he just focus fired the Banelings on the high ground with medevac vision? That was kind of cute.
That was really nice.
Kind of cute. I always like to appreciate the small things.
Yeah, well, Semper going to try and get some pickoffs with these medevac drops. He did manage to keep at least a handful of the other Marines alive in those first 2 medevac drops, but now he's going to be moving in with 4 medevacs all to the same location, it seems. Okay, he's going to just go ham on that in-base natural, knowing that it takes a long time for those Lings to sneak all the way back around to that location.
Well, here we go. He's got a few Banes ready to go, does JonSnow, but only a couple of them. One of them doesn't really get a good connection. The other one is being body blocked by the Queen here. Really, really awkward situation for JonSnow as he loses every bit of defense, and if Bester pops out, but there's no pathogen glands, one of those medevacs goes down, but the others escape. A pretty solid trade by Semper, and Semper does have a decent supply lead here. That doesn't mean that much yet, because, of course, it doesn't mean he's ahead. It means that he's got this really big advantage right now. If JonSnow still gets up to the Ultras without taking critical damage, he's going to be in a great spot. But this is that area of the game that we saw last time around where JonSnow is very, very weak defensively until he gets those ultras.
Yeah, this is the exact moment. Ultralisk Cavern about to finish up. It's going to be a minute and a half or so until Ultralisk Cavern finally outputs the Ultras, and Chitinous Plating is finally researched. And Semper is going to try and put on as much aggression as possible until that point. Natural base getting dropped. The drones have nowhere to run without moving past these Marines. The Sporker is buying a little bit of time, and a Hydra even doing some good damage, but base on the left-hand side getting canceled. Medevac's actually getting pushed back, and somehow JonSnow manages to make it out of that situation, only losing 4 workers.
Yeah, really, really nicely controlled by JonSnow. You saw him get the cancel on that 5th base as well, despite everything going on in the natural. Doesn't miss that. So he does lose his 5th base for now, but that's not the biggest problem in the world for him, especially because he does have a macro hatch in his main. Losing 4 workers is not really that bad, and here we go. The 7 ultras on the way compared to the 1 we saw last time. Supply, even now. Even though there was that 30-40 supply lead for Semper, it's even now because he's at that Ultra Tech. He's got Chitinous halfway done. This is where it gets scary. This is what I was talking about in the last game, where the Zerg can get up to this Ultralisk count far quicker than the Terran can get up to the required Marauder count to deal with it. So now this went from the position in the game where Semper is very strong compared to JonSnow. It's just been flipped on its head. JonSnow, if he pushes in a frontal push with this army, Semper's going to have a hell of a time trying to defend it.
Yeah, even get some Corruptors out to help shut down not only drops, but also potential Liberator production, if Semper had already gotten started on that, which as far as I'm aware, he really has not. So things are going to be incredibly difficult, but Semper is pushing up along that left-hand side. He's scanning around, confirming, oh, you still haven't reestablished that 5th base at that location. I guess I'll back off, but in reality, it's just that a different 5th base was established.
Yeah, I mean, I like that Semper's leaving a couple of...
Really nice
I don't think it's going to kill. He kills off a couple of the Marines, but at the end of the day,
it buys some
energy for time, and gets a few kills anyway. But I like that Semper's leaving a couple Marines up at the top left just to make sure that he knows when it's retaken. Looks like they just got killed off by a few Lings. But again, as you mentioned, the 5th base is already being reestablished at the other location here. JonSnow, interestingly, playing relatively defensive with his main force. He's not going for that timing push with the Ultras. He's moving out now, but he's almost missed the window. He hasn't missed it yet, but it's beginning to close.
Yeah, Fusion Core on the way. When the Liberator count starts to build up, Semper's going to get more and more answers to these Ultras. So like you were saying, he's going to have a harder time taking as dominating of an engagement, taking advantage of the tech that he tried to go for so quickly, especially with 3-3, getting very, very close to finishing up, I believe.
Yeah, but as I said, though, we've got 3-3 on the way and halfway done for JonSnow. It's not going to be an advantage for that long. Now, this is a great position here for the Terran player, especially with tanks. Will he be able to get the trades that he needs? The Ultras are not in position for the surround yet. Gets a kill on the 6th base. No cancel there. JonSnow trying to set up this surround. The Ultras coming on in from the top, coming on in from the bottom, distracting the tanks. Some more Lings coming on in. Only one Ultra at the bottom has died. The other ones are cleaving to the tank lines. The supplies staying relatively even. Some good fungals going down, but it looks like Semper may have enough to hold on for now. Will JonSnow have time to get his Remax out?
Yeah, it's a nice idea trying to go for that surround, but at the same time, he's still moving through a choke point with a good chunk of his army, and Semper able to clean up. And now JonSnow loses his 5th base. He's actually trying to do some aggression on the other side of the map to Semper's new base, but that Planetary Fortress is going to eventually... No, actually doesn't.
Adrenal Glands is really, really good, Robbie.
It's really scary, man.
Really good. So he actually does manage to cancel that PF, which is going to open up the window potentially for him to go for a push on that with these 10 Ultralisks that are about to pop. It's a bit of an over making of Ultras, I would say. You do need support with them, and he already has a couple still on the map. Making 10, now 11 more might be too many Ultras. I know some people think you can't ever have too many Ultras, but I feel like I'd like one less Ultra, maybe 3 more Corruptors, you know, get the balance, find it a little better, but this is definitely a very, very scary force in a head-on engage. Semper's going to need to continue to execute his very, very good positioning if he's going to defend against this.
Yeah, it's actually a lot like the, I believe it was Idra that said, you either win the game with Ultras or you throw the game with Ultras. It oftentimes is one of the two.
Oftentimes, yes. Not quite as bad. But actually, this is a really big deal because of the Adrenal Glands. Lings getting in can pick off reinforcements so cost-efficiently, picking off a couple of workers as well, but he does lose the 5th base.
No cancel just yet, and
he
it
gets
is.
it. No cancel, even though he had about an hour for that. But
Whoa.
in come the Ultras, goes to the choke point, but he makes it
Those
through.
fungals.
And the Fungal's picking up a lot.
Oh, man, the Ultra's starting to cleave on through. The Planetary Fortress is going to go down in a matter of seconds. JonSnow getting the damage done that he needs, killing off not only the army, but also all of the workers. 44 going down, only 33 left over. I'm surprised he has that many left over. While the Ultras may be very low on hit points at this point, they've already done a devastating amount of damage to Semper's economy.
They really have 100 supply advantage for JonSnow. As the last vestige of hope, this medevac drop does get picked off. What does Semper have? Not really much. He's got 56 army supply and a dream, Ravi. But I don't know if the dream is going to be strong enough as the PF dies and the majority of his workers go down as well. He's staying in the game for now, but JonSnow still maxed out, mostly because of the bank that he'd amassed earlier. Look how good Adrenal Glands is. Jesus.
It is very, very strong. And Semper, of course, is a fighter, but one or two more good fungal growths from that remaining infestor may end up locking down the deal. The Ultras just go uncontested, and JonSnow takes the 2-1 lead in this best of 5.
Whew, intense games, Robbie. This is a great series. Great series of StarCraft.
And I'm so glad we get to see a macro game there from both of those players.
Yeah.
It wasn't like game number 1 or game number 2 where JonSnow was really insistent on making the damage happen with the Ravagers.
Designated pressure,
Designated pressure. Who am I talking to? No regret?
Well, I have been hanging out with him a lot on the analysts area.
The analyst area, indeed. But
All right, so 2-1 for JonSnow. Probably feeling pretty good after that. I was very surprised to see Acolyte as the map. But, you know, Acolyte's out of the way, and JonSnow grabs a win. A lot of Zergs don't like that map versus Terran. Some do.
Yeah.
Specifically, the people who really like Mutiling Bane tend to like it, but we didn't see Mutas there. We haven't seen Mutas at all, actually, and JonSnow is a guy who kind of likes Mutiling Bane. So I'm very interested to see whether he uses that in the next game or whether he goes for another sort of cheese. We haven't seen any super early cheeses out of him. It's all been 3-base timing, so...
Yeah. Or not, you know, going for the 3-base timing where you fake out a third
Right,
and have
yeah.
it for Larva or something like that. But we have, yeah, you're right. We haven't seen anything like we saw with Scarlet versus Masa, going for just 4 Ravager Rush and trying to close out the series incredibly quickly. And I do feel like that's sometimes what I end up seeing Semper lose to a lot, is a lot of those early game aggressions.
Yeah, as you were kind of saying earlier, he is the guy who can really bring himself back from a deficit better than most players.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things you have to be scared of when you cheese him, is that, like, yeah, you put yourself ahead, but
If you don't win the
if you
game
don't
right
win the
there.
game, you're thrown off your macro build because your timings are all off from Baneling busting
he's
him
like
or
the
doing
guy
whatever.
who you'll
You
see
really
in the movie.
have to kill him. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta kill him because he's used to playing in weird situations and playing from behind. So if you go for the early cheese, gotta make sure he's dead. Don't just punch him a few times. Gotta make sure that he's actually not moving anymore.
Just don't just break his arms and break his legs. Like you gotta go in for the kill. Snap that guy's neck and put him out of his misery.
Little graphic. Little graphic. Actually, I kind of hope we see them face-to-face again, like next to each other, because of the funny story that I was hearing from JonSnow yesterday. When you were there as well. We went to. Oh, there we go. Awesome. So we actually were at lunch with these guys yesterday, and apparently Pig thought they were the same person, or not the same person, but like he thought that Jared was Semper or something. I can kind of see it now that they're next to each other on camera. A little bit.
A little bit. Maybe.
I feel like
just
they've
a
got the
tad.
same facial shape.
Handsome.
Yes, very handsome. Why is everybody who's playing in this tournament so handsome? Think about that for a second. Think about the player list.
That's true.
And then we have the most handsome commentator, Steadfast.
Steadfast actually is legit. Let's real talk. He's a good-looking dude.
We have a very good-looking scene in StarCraft. It's great.
We do.
It's wonderful.
We're blessed like that, especially the
we are
North American scene.
Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed.
All right, so we're just waiting on the 4th game, guys. It's going to be... I kind of think that this is one of the players probably asked for a couple minutes after that. They've all been really tense games, so generally it's pretty standard to have a couple-minute break after 3 games in a series in a best-of-5.
But the real question, Stefan, is who was ahead at the 8-minute mark?
Oh! I think if we're looking at supply, that's right around when Semper was up by 40 supply.
Yeah.
That's although that is actually the point where I said he's not actually ahead. He's just ahead in supply. But he was ahead in supply, which in Todd's world means he had a very solid lead.
Basically. I'm surprised Todd doesn't just play Zerg and make roaches.
Yeah, right? So I can max out by the 7-minute mark.
Useful supply, but of course, just a reminder that this is the loser's bracket, so whoever ends up losing this series is going to be completely knocked out of the tournament. Our first player to get knocked out. That's actually such a sad thought. Is
it really is.
JonSnow or Semper is going to get knocked out right here.
But if you lose, if you're knocked out, you can always put one of these beautiful chairs for gaming seats in the horizontal mode and go to sleep.
That is true. We've had a couple of
you
people
can
already
sleep in
do
these.
that.
They're really nice.
Yeah. Very, very useful for that. I know I do
subtle,
that.
Subtle sponsor plug.
Subtle sponsor plug. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to hop into this game on our Asus ROG computers. And introduce this player up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, the red Terran player. Give it up for Root Gaming's
Root Gaming, Semper.
And in the bottom right, one game away from advancing, the Blue Zerg player for Storm Gaming. It is
Storm JonSnow.
I like this crowd.
I love this crowd.
Grassroots esports.
Grassroots.
Now you mentioned the Asus ROG computers. I realized today I actually have one of the same. Like that is the computer I have. It's really good.
Yeah,
like real talk. It's actually the computer I have. It's really good.
They are really solid.
Yeah. Great.
Of course, if you maybe don't have the money or something for it, then I would highly recommend
Then
checking
you
out
need
some
to
of those
sign
tournaments
up.
on Matcherino.
Oh!
They have a lot of really awesome StarCraft tournaments, and you can actually crowdfund there.
Yeah.
If you use the promo code KOTN4, you can help crowdfund Kings of the North, increase that prize pool.
Do it.
Done.
Wow, right now, while we were casting, Robbie's amazing. He has so many talents. All right, so Hatch Gas Pool coming out of JonSnow once again. Kind of interesting. I see a lot of JonSnow games, so I'm a little interested just in the general openings he's been going for. He's been going Hatch Gas Pool a lot, which is a little out of character. He's the dude who goes Gas Pool Expand more than anyone else in the world. Him and Silky are sort of the guys who pioneered the everyone on NA who's a Zerg goes Gas Pool Expand every game now. So kind of interesting that he's been going for the Hatch Gas Pool instead. And also, okay, he is going for the 4 lings once again. In one of the earlier games, I think the first game, he only got 1 ling. 6 lings, okay.
Yeah.
The little things. This is actually kind of cool, though. This doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be aggressive. 6 lings can also just mean he wants to be super, super safe against the Reaper.
Yeah, and those lings are going to be popping out after the Reaper already makes its way into his natural, and the Reaper taking a bit of damage over here. The lings actually getting some pretty good damage done, but we'll be able to push those back. And now after seeing those 6 lings, Semper's got to be feeling good. Like, okay, yeah, I just have to continue to harass a little bit, keep my Reaper alive, and this has absolutely been a nice opening for him.
Yeah, I mean, if you see 6 lings, you effectively know that you effectively killed a drone by forcing him to make 1 less drone. So, very good for JonSnow to save the drone that he did with very low HP. Losing a drone when you make 6 lings feels pretty bad. Kind of makes you want to alt F4, but, you know, he doesn't need to now because he saved that drone. And in the meantime, looks like another mine opening. We'll see if he goes for another drop. I'm kind of interested that he hasn't done that 2-prong Hellion drop, Hellion running into the natural kind of build at all, but JonSnow's really good at multi-prong harass defense, so maybe that's just kind of why he's thinking more in this sort of area as far as builds go, but we'll see what the mine drop can do. It didn't really do too much on Interloper.
No, but it might actually be able to get a kill off on this Overlord, which is really nice. Supply blocking JonSnow by a good bit. Overlords now just finishing up, so gives him a little bit more supply.
This is really bad. We just saw 2 Marines go down, and think about how in the last game he had 5 Marines in that push. He's going to have 3. Not particularly scary. So JonSnow, Marines, as we know, in a lot of Terran units, they scale exponentially. They are very good in high numbers, obviously. So going from 5 to 3, not great. Gets himself an SIV as well. This is what JonSnow is best at. JonSnow is so good at just finding these tiny, tiny openings and these tiny, tiny advantages that really do pile up over time.
Yeah, and I believe some of the lings should have actually been able to see that there was a Widow Mine over there, so he also should have a good idea of exactly what's going to be coming out for him. Reaper makes his way all the way into the main base. Really, really nice scout over here for Semper, but Reaper does get picked off, and the medevac is on its way out with, like you said, 3 Marines.
3 Marines! Really interesting is actually the Banshee follow-up,
Yeah.
Cloak Banshee follow-up. So maybe we'll see an armory and like a big frontal push with Hellbats. He's continuing to make Hellions, even though he's already got a fair few. Oh god, raise it Debo, raise it Debo. No! Semper, why? Oh god, this is so bad, so terrible. Nothing to defend at home right now. The Hellions do come back. Actually, JonSnow not really focus firing particularly well. He does go for the whole position micro, but still doesn't really kill much. Killed one worker, I think.
Yeah, really not killing nearly as much as he
God, that
wanted.
was anticlimactic.
Yeah, but hey, 3 Marines on the other side of the map, also not doing that much more damage. It does, oh, nice making of that Spore Crawler, dodging the Widowmine shot. Gets a very nice cleanup. Both players actually defending relatively well outside of the raised supply or lowered supply depot.
Yep. We'll see how much this can get done. We've got 6 Hellions moving on in. I am fairly certain that I did not see an armory on the production tab. Yep, so the Hellions are going to pop on in as Hellions. And they'll roasty-toasty a couple of drones. Let's see how much BBQ he can get.
A good bit
yeah,
so
well,
far.
this is a bit of a smorgasbord.
11 workers.
Oh my god, that's too much.
12
that's
workers.
way too much.
Could even go for the 13th. He does get 13 and backs on out of there. The Queen's going to be able to push these Hellions back. Well, the Hellions actually losing their lives over here. I think
there's actually Lings in the natural base right now. Oh, they're in the main now. What is wrong with the supply depots, man? They're staying down. Can JonSnow get enough damage done here to sort of recoup the losses? The answer is yes. He's already denied so much mining. He's delaying the production of the additional production structures. 7 workers are killed as well. Overall, JonSnow actually puts himself in quite a decent position, and more Lings are going to flood on in. They're going to try to pick off a couple of these low HP SCVs. The Banshees will rain down terror from above, but not before more and more SCVs go down.
Yeah, and even the Banshees just being over here defensively is really where Semper does not want them. He wants them on the other side of the map. He wants to be picking off workers one by one, utilizing Cloak, but this just buys JonSnow even more time to get up his lair, to get up his upgrades, to just try and be prepared for the next stage of the game behind this. Whereas Semper, after losing so much, not only worker-wise, but also losing so many units, he has to be defensive. He doesn't really have an option until now finally the Banshees get a chance to move out.
Yeah, and this is going to be... Well, these Banshees need to try to find something. JonSnow's worker count's not incredible. He's at 50, which really is not as many as it sounds for a Zerg player at 7 minutes into the game. But he is continuing to produce a couple more. If we could get the production tab back, that would be awesome. And yeah, so no upgrades coming in for JonSnow right now. So the upgrades are going to be quite decently ahead for Semper, and it looks like Semper may actually be able to pick off this 4th base. No detection at all coming on in. Is there even a lair? There is, because there's a Hydra Den coming down, but cancellation.
Yeah. Immediately remakes it. The Banshees still continue to stutter step and do damage. And the Overseer is almost here. The
cancel! Oh, no!
Oh, no cancel. The damage is enough and finally gets the kill on that 3rd base. The Banshees even escape out of there alive. JonSnow going to try and go for a Ling and I mean, he saw that there was no 3rd because he has an Overlord pooping out the creep over there. But
yeah, he actually saw the 3rd redirect over to the other base because Semper tried to fly it out there. Didn't have the anti-air units there to remove that Overlord. In the meantime, it actually looks like JonSnow did have 1-1 already. So JonSnow is the one with the upgrade leads right now. And a couple of Hydras are going to start coming out to the field as well. This one Zergling could pick off about 3 workers who are very low on HP, but the Stim Marines come on down. Does get 1 for its trouble, though. Again, these tiny little advantages that JonSnow is great at finding. Now, those 2 Banshees, still both alive. Well, let's see if he can pull off some of that nice micro. You just pop in, avoid the Spore Crawl. There we go. Nice focus fire, picking off a couple more of the workers. 4 workers go down.
Well done. And one Banshee gets a little bit low, but you can always go back home, repair those up. I like that these Baneling run-by attempts, as he also had the Lings there earlier, and he's going to maybe be able to catch a few units, but this time it seems like Semper actually has all of his Marines in the right spot, and even got some supply depots up there on the high ground.
I'm actually super worried. Does JonSnow not realize that he doesn't have Baneling speed on the way? It's really late to not have Baneling speed right now.
Oh, his lair is definitely done. He really
there it is. Baneling speed starts up. I mean, when you're starting your Baneling speed 1 minute into your 2-2, that's always a little weird. And I think he probably queued up those Banelings and then looked back over at them and was like, oh, they're moving a little slowly. Not going to the rolling, but
a little unfortunate.
Waddling on over. But it looks like the supply depots will see them as well. They're trying to waddle away for their lives.
Oh, they waddle.
They get away. The Ling gives its life so that the Banelings may live
as does
to
the
commit
Overlord.
suicide another day.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for Semper, he's not going to be able to find those banelings. But fortunately for JonSnow, he's not going to be affected by the fact that his baneling speed was a good bit later. Doesn't seem like there's going to be an engagement force right before that baneling speed finishes up. And Semper has a pretty scary looking army, so he might try and start to move out now. But the creep has actually been pretty decent over here for JonSnow. He's got it out a good bit of the ways away on the north side, so he will buy himself some time.
Honestly, like, the numbers at the bottom, we see the supply, we see the difference and the advantage for Semper, but I don't know how this is going to go, really. I just actually don't know, because you don't very often see Zerg this far ahead in upgrades. But the Banshee's just continuing to do more and more economic damage. This is some excellent control. Both of them still alive. Will the 2-2 upgrades compared to the 1-1 upgrades be enough to allow JonSnow to clean this up? That's the real question here. Because it's a long time until Semper's 2-2 is done. A couple of things are going to try to run by.
Whoa.
Tanks are going to be able to get rid of most of them.
And it looks like the depots do raise in the main base.
The one time they raise, it's for 4 lings.
Yeah, well, you know, better late than never.
Yeah.
Well, the Marines going to be darting on over to the third. The Hydras and Lings and Banes will catch these Marines and try and put an end to their life. Or maybe JonSnow will just be distracted by the main engagement. He's also trying to get some more damage done with those Lings. But here we go. Hydras moving on in. The Banelings detonate on some of those units, but the Siege Tanks and the Marines force these units away. These Marines have to be careful not to overcommit, though.
Well, we do have the base down here established, or at least getting established. The units shouldn't be able to really ruin this this hatchery's day. How does that Banshee still have energy? It's almost out. Here we go. Down it goes. There's another base coming on down to the 6 o'clock location, so JonSnow has given up the other position.
The Banelings connect and close out the 1-2 punch combo. The Sea Shank's going to go down, and JonSnow finally pushes Semper all the way back, cleaning up everything that was being aggressive on this side of the map.
That being said, Semper does maintain a healthy army supply lead, at least. He's got about a 32 army supply lead right now. He's going to be able to equalize the upgrades here at 2-2, and it's going to take a little while for 3-3 to start for JonSnow, purely because of how expensive it is. He's got +3 melee on the way, but he's also being forced to invest his gas in other places right now, like the Ultralisk Cavern, the Adrenal Glands, more Banelings defensively. So Semper no longer has to deal with an upgrade deficit, which is nice. Very, very nice going forward, especially when he still has a big army supply advantage. The Baneling connections are going to need to be big, but there just aren't that many Banelings here, Robbie. There's 6 Banelings.
Yeah, but some good Infestor Fungal Growth could really turn things around, and hey, even the Hydra DPS is pretty damn high right now, so Semper has to still be a bit wary about this. The hatchery will end up falling as well as 6 workers, so not bad in terms of kind of free and easy damage over here for Semper, but he still has to be very, very careful about moving on to this creep.
The Ultras are almost done. 3 of them, not that many. Chitinous Plating is still a ways away, but we do have a few Queens in this army that'll allow him to transfuse. Looks like at least 1 Queen is in there with a lot of energy, but really... okay, so the Spire's going to start as well. He's going to have a few Corruptors, but the problem right now is that this is a very expensive army for JonSnow, and he's been stuck on 3.5, 4 bases for such a long time, not able to secure a 5th base, not able to secure a 4th for quite a while, that he just doesn't have the money to make this army. And even if he does get up to max with a good army composition, he's not going to have the bank to remax like we saw last game. Last game, he lost that fight in the choke point and had such a huge army, he just made 11 Ultralisks straight away, so he was maxed again. This is not going to be the way this game goes. He's going to need to take a much better engagement. He's going to need to make sure that he's the one that wins the initial fight, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. We have a pretty solid army composition here for Semper. He's adding on 2 more starports. He's adding on double Liberators production. He's got +1 ready for the Liberators in about 3 seconds as well. Multiple Marauder production coming out 3 at a time. So that's nice, though.
Yeah, really nice Fungal paired with that Ultra. Cleaves his way through a handful of those Marines for Semper. Ling run by attempts. He encounters a Planetary Fortress, and there's the supply depot raise. Semper on top of it after those early game harassments. But I like that JonSnow is also just... It seems like he's kind of patiently trying to wait for Semper to overreach and get overconfident about his engagements on creep.
I think that's a good idea right now, but he can't play that as his thought thought process for the long game, because the problem is if he waits too long, Semper's just going to have too much in the way of Marauders and Liberators and upgrades for the Liberators, and he's just not going to be able to actually win anymore because there's a critical mass of Liberators. If Semper suddenly has 20 plus 2 ranged Liberators with a whole bunch of tanks and Marauders on the ground, you're just not going to win that fight. So it's going to be a bit of a balancing act for JonSnow about how long does he play defensively and what fungals do these Infestors land.
This does get very, very dangerous. The Marines trying to drop forward, and it seems like JonSnow setting up for a two-pronged aggression attack over here to try and cut down on this army. He has some units positioned over by the 30, he has some positioned a little bit further north, and here we go. Big fungal growth landing on a handful of those Marines. More fungal growth actually landing on the entire south side of the army. Ultralisk closing the distance on these tanks, and it is going to be a cleanup.
Very nice engagement there for JonSnow. That's what he needed. He definitely needed to be the one to win that fight, but at the same time, Semper, with this multi-pronged harass, aggressive macro, as Ravi has said, takes out the 6 o'clock base once again, keeping JonSnow pinned on 4 bases. And as we see, JonSnow won that fight. He didn't lose that much, and he still can't remax to 200.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but he can still try and ride the momentum of this. Oh, unfortunately, one of the biggest momentum halters are the planetary fortresses. They're such a good defensive unit. If you can force an engagement by them, it really just adds to your capabilities of taking a fight and turning things around, especially with Lings and Hydras. But JonSnow going to be going, okay, he is going to be going over to the low ground third, which is an orbital command. A lot of supply depots over here that are well positioned. Liberator siege up in a really nice spot as well, but there are a ton of corruptors here, Penguin.
Yeah, he needs to dart in, pick off one at a time. Gets a good fungal off there. That's not going to allow one of those Liberators to siege. The others go down pretty quickly. Does not lose that last Ultralisk at the front. Still a decent supply lead for JonSnow. Most of that is in workers, which is good, but at the same time, it means that he doesn't have that advantage in army to push on through. So it means that Semper's at a much lower risk of dying right this second. In the meantime, looks like that 5th base has been established for Semper. JonSnow has taken the center right base as the 5th, and is reestablishing the 6 o'clock as well. So overall, the game is normalized and sort of petered out into a more passive position where neither player wants to overcommit into the other. So JonSnow is going for those siege line breakers, the Broodlords.
Yeah, how do you feel about that Broodlord transition? Especially since it always gets a little bit weird, right? Because your opponent has all of these starports that they've been making Liberators with, and now suddenly you can make a very quick switch into Vikings. So it gets a little bit hectic, right?
Yeah, I feel like the point, like in a game like this especially, the purpose of the Broodlords is not even really to do damage. The purpose of the Broodlords is to do one of two things. Either, yes, they can break the siege tanks and continue to push on through, or alternately, they all die, but they force the opponent to make a bunch of Vikings that are completely worthless against your Remax. So the point of the Broodlords is that you want to use them and have them in that fight when you have enough money in the bank to completely Remax on a different unit. And then you take advantage of the fact that maybe they overinvested in Vikings. Maybe they just don't have the correct units to deal with Ultralisks anymore. And that's really when you see the benefit of the Broodlords.
All right, well, a couple of drones are going to end up falling over here. Semper is trying to push on forward. The Liberator siege up in a really nice spot. Oh my god, those fungo growths! The Ultras cleaving through so many more of these units. The Corruptors taking out those Liberators. Semper is on the retreat, and these Ultras mostly still looking pretty healthy despite the Liberator damage. Retreating to the safety of this planetary fortress isn't going to be enough.
Well, he gets a couple of Ultras there right at the start. Another one getting fairly low. Planetary Fortress stitching out a decent amount of extra damage. Really nice of Semper to actually be able to save a couple of those tanks. Picks off a few of the Infestors on the retreat. Got a Liberator over here up on top of that 5th base, denying some mining. And, well, Semper making the best of a bad situation there. Loses the fight once again. A lot of that was due to that fungal at the very start. But he saved the tanks, which allowed him to hold on to that Planetary Fortress. And then he managed to do a little bit of damage on the other side of the map as well, just to make sure that JonSnow was forced back. So Semper showing some tenacious play, not letting JonSnow snowball from winning smaller engagements.
Yeah, God, 5 Liberators coming out at a time is a bit ridiculous, but also some Vipers coming out for JonSnow. I really like the addition of these Vipers. Blinding Clouds, as well as just being able to pull some of those value, high target units like Liberators or Siege Tanks.
Well, the bigger thing as well is that if you pull Liberators, they unsiege.
Oh, yeah.
And Abduct is a fairly cheap energy-wise ability. Oh, this is bad, though. Not only are the Broodlords revealed, one of them does get canceled. Looks like the other 2 should be saved. And now this is the moment of truth, really, or the minute and a half or 2 minutes of truth. How does Semper react to this?
Well, I think we actually have quite a few Liberators still just coming out right now. But
I think that's honestly, as long as the Broodlord count's not too high, and he is adding 7 more, like tons of Liberators aren't the worst idea, because while they're going to kill the Liberators or the Broodlords slowly, they still will kill the Broodlords eventually, and you won't die to the Ultra Remax afterwards. So it's an interesting decision.
All right. Keep an eye on those Vipers, as they will be able to make really big changes in this game, as we end up seeing a lot of these units. Oh, Blind Cloud's being thrown down on top of those Siege Tanks, and it seems like the Corruptors are able to just go after those Liberators, but man, those Banelings.
Yeah, just a few Banelings at the side there do end up connecting, killing off a lot of that bio that was trying to kite. Semper a little bit late on that second stim, allowing the Banelings to close the distance. In come the Broodlords now. There is not really any answer for them right now. And that's going to be a huge problem. There's 9 Broodlords, I believe. We see some Vikings in production, I think. No, never mind. Oh, wait, no. Are those Vikings? Yeah, okay.
No.
War chest skins are hard, man. 4
They
Vikings
are.
at a time coming on out. But is that going to be enough? There's already Corruptors out. And, well, JonSnow pushing on in. We do see the supply for Semper still not particularly low, but it's the wrong supply.
Oh, man, this is getting really, really difficult right now.
And look at the positioning of the starports as well. He's he's losing the production facilities.
He's losing his answer to the units that are killing his production right now. This is a huge, huge problem, as the Ultra's gonna get forced back by some of this bio, but again, there's no answer to these Broodlords. Even the Vipers over there ready to try and do any kind of parasitic bombs if there are a couple of Vikings out. Whatever answer that Semper has, it has to be now.
He's base trading. That's not a great situation to be in, but he's gonna try. He does get intercepted in the middle of the map, but not by enough units to actually clean this up. JonSnow loses a few Ultras. The army supply is still about 30 in favor of JonSnow. I like the idea here from Semper, but he's going to get caught by the Broodlords, losing more and more of his anti-air. There's very little of it on the map in the form of Marines, but almost all of them have died now, and this attempted force is going to get killed. 100 supply to 155 right now. That 5th base, the 3rd base, all dead for Semper. He's got 1 mining base at the moment, and he lost a lot of his production facilities, as we said. GG, good luck is called. And JonSnow will advance to the next round.
3-1. Very, very close series, though. Our closest today so far.
Great games. Really